Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Ready in Minutes workout. Today we've got an intermediate single arm kettlebell circuit that focuses on working from the top on down. So that means that you're gonna start with single arm overhead work and the lifts will work their way down to the ground. So let's dive in and see what we're working on. Okay, it might seem like there's a lot going on here, but let's break it down bit by bit to make sense of it. So the first part of the sequence is swing and high pulls. So very simple, you're gonna set up the way you always do for your swings, hinge on over, shoulders even. First one is a swing, second one is a high pull, elbow behind you. Swing, high pull. Now, if you're planning to take breaks between the sequences, then there's nothing you need to do differently here. However, if you do wanna perform this as a complex, then after your last high pull, you will do one snatch to set up in the overhead position. So here's what it looks like. If you're doing all 5 reps, one swing, one high pull, that's my 5th one, and then a snatch. This will let you transition into the next part of the sequence without having to take a pause in between. All right, now that you're here in an overhead lockout, we're going to do a dead snatch to a push jerk. So we're going to snatch down in a straight line, snatch back up in a straight line, guide it to the rack, bend the knees, and get underneath the weight. Once you do this, snatch back down in a straight line, soft landing, snatch back up to the top, guide to the rack, bend, and get underneath the weight. Once we finish here, we're gonna guide to the rack, and we're gonna clean and reverse lunge at the same time. So it's not one then the other, both happen simultaneously, so your timing needs to be down here. We're gonna clean, reverse lunge, hovering just above the ground, come back up, clean. Reverse lunge, hover just above the ground, come back to neutral. After that, we're gonna drop clean down to the ground, again, soft landing, or let it hover just above the ground. Row once to your side pocket, and dead clean, back up to the rack. The key is keeping your shoulder back and your lats activated all throughout to act as the brake for when you dead clean down to the ground. Otherwise, if the shoulders fall out and the lats disengage, that happens. So make sure to keep the shoulder back in its socket and think about pinching your armpits all throughout every part of the movement. All right, for our last movement, we're going to do a get down. Tapping our free leg, and instead of finishing the get down all the way to the ground, we are going to bend the other leg, sitting in a straddle, guide the bell to the rack, and do a Z press for 5 reps. When you finish, you can grab the base of the bell and put it down to the ground. No need to finish the get down all the way through, unless you want to. And that's our circuit for the day. Now, let's dive in and do it 2 times to each side together. All right, so let's start off on our first side. Doing swings and high pulls for 5 of each. So let's set up the way we normally would, shoulders even, height back, swing, high pull, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now if you're doing it as a complex, snatch. All right, then we're gonna dead snatch down to the ground, snatch to the top, guide to the rack, and push jerk. All right, dead snatch down to the ground, to the top, guide to the rack, and push jerk. All right, now we're doing our clean and reverse lunge. So both at the same time for 5 reps. 3, 4, and 5. All right, we're back in the rack position. We're gonna dead clean down to the ground. You can let it hover, row, and dead clean to the rack. 2, 5, and to the top. All right, now we can press, we can push press, tap the free leg, or tap the leg with the free hand. Big step back, open up, sweep on out, straddle, and press for 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Grab the base, put the bell down, and that's the end of side 1 of round 1. All right, we're off to the second side. Let's set up for our swings and our high pulls for 5. 4, 5. 5, and snatch. Dead clean down to the ground. Dead clean to the top. Guide to the rack and push jerk. Down to the ground, to the top, to the rack, and 2. Up, hold on. Almost messed that one up. Down to the ground, top, rack, and all right. Back to the rack position, clean between the legs and reverse lunge. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, dead clean down to the ground, row, back to the top, and 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, let's press it overhead, tap the leg with the free hand, open up, chop, walk it out, sit in the straddle, guide to the rack and press for 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, got it to the ground. And that's the end of round 1. Take a quick break if you need to, and let's dive right into round 2. All right, we're back to our first side for round 2. Let's set up for our single arm swings and high pulls, and we are off. 2, 3, 5, and snatch. All right, dead snatch down to the ground, to the top, push jerk. Ground, top, rack. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, dead clean down to the ground. Let it hover, row to the side pocket, and back up to the rack. All right, get it overhead, tap the leg, open up, sweep one out, sit in your straddle, and 2, 3, 4, and 5. Got it to the ground. We got one side left to do. Let's get right after it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one side left. Let's finish strong, set up, even shoulders, swing, and high pull. 4, and 5, 5, and snatch. All right, straight down to the ground, straight up to the top, right to the rack, and push jerk. Down to the ground, to the top, to the rack, push jerk. 3, 4, and all right, guide to the rack, clean and reverse lunge. 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, dead clean to the ground. We'll let it hover, side pocket, back to the rack. 3, 3, 4, 5, 5. All right, last thing we're doing, send it up overhead, tap the leg, open up, chop and walk it out. All right, sit in the straddle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, down to the ground for the finish. Great job. This was a tough one. All right, so as promised, a strength and conditioning circuit that has you working from the top on down. Still working overhead, because nothing beats overhead pressing or overhead work. You can never have enough. It's a good intermediate, trending, advanced level circuit because you do have to think on your feet as you transition between moves. But it's a lot of fun. Well, I feel like it's a lot of fun to work through. So I hope you have just as much fun doing it. And as usual, let me know if you have any questions or problems with any of the moves or sequences. And I'll see you guys real soon on the next one. Stay strong. This will let you transition into the next part of the sequence without having to take a pause in between. And what is the next part of the sequence?